presentation name changed about 3 or 4 times in the past couple of days. But I thought Business Analysis meets Agile, your blueprint for better projects. It's a proper title. My name is Shervin Joseph. I'm a director here at Improving. And in most situations, I'm an Agile coach. I also work as a project manager, as a delivery lead here with our clients. And my email's there if you ever want to reach out to me. And here in my slide, it's turned into this with all these certifications at the bottom. But I think the most important thing, which is like a message about how improving is how I am, is this message from Kobe Bryant, was the most important thing in life is how your career moves and touches those around you. How it carries forward to the next generation. That's what makes true greatness. To make the transformation from looking inward, which I think a lot of people do early in their careers, to then growing and understanding the power, of course, of looking outwardly. And so you can't get up in front of people without thinking about how your impact is for them. So that's always been moving to me. So I got news for it the other day, but yeah, I've been improving. It's my 7th year. I've been over 20 years. A couple of gray hairs. It's been a little while. Over 10 years of agility, so I think I know enough to help lead you guys in this presentation. So improving, we recently bought 2 new companies in the past 2 months. So we're now 21 offices. We have a new office in Pune, India, and we bought one in Guatemala. So now this has changed from month to month, this slide. It's a little bit of a chore to keep up with it. And we won a number of awards for best places to work on the national level and the local level. But the best thing about that is that people always talk about within these walls, you feel trust is established with your teams, with your leads, and with your clients. And so I think that's one of the nicest things about the awards. The trophies are great, but the comments you hear that people write that makes it to the award banquets and that are read out loud is always nice. That safe place to grow up. I know how to be my true self. This and this happened, and it's always just like, yeah, it's year after year, it remains the same way. We've crossed over 2,000 people. We're now over 300 million in revenue, so we're improving, continues to grow. And you mentioned different services. We're going to focus on training and coaching, consulting, software development is our big service. We do outsourcing. But community is one of the biggest pillars of what we offer. And that's one of the reasons you guys are here. I don't know if everybody knows, but these user groups, nobody should have charged you admission on the way in. If they did, let me know. But we have drinks and pizza and a safe place for you guys to meet and air conditioning and all these things. They come with fees, but we do them because when I asked this, it's the right thing to do. You need to give people who only have 4 or 5 people space to get together because they're often overlooked. You need to give people who are excited about something, but they may not know where to find out there's a place to be. And so some of our groups are 60 people, and some of them are as small as 4. But that community thing, that's the reason it's first, is that it's never something that we put aside. Even during COVID, when things were as bad as they were, we continued to make videos, continued to make live webinars, moving from office to online because that was such an important pillar of how we work. These bullets all worked earlier. I don't know why they all. All right, so my goal for today is I'd like to share with you 5 Agile best practices that can enhance your skills as a business analyst. And like I mentioned to some of you guys outside, some of them might be kind of broad, it might be kind of generic, but I don't know who's a business analyst, who's a senior business analyst, who's hoping to one day be a business analyst, who's trying to find a new career. And so I have these 5, which can apply to software development, it could apply to financial services, it could apply to healthcare, it could apply to working at home with your partner and your children. And so it can apply to work and life in many ways. And so I also realized while I was doing this, and I don't do a lot of presenting in front of people, I think I'm gonna have to present more because I was like, I can we'll talk about this or we'll talk about that. And I'll be honest, I've never had that feeling of like, ooh, I have good information I want to share with other people, and it can really, find some level of help or satisfaction from it. But like in making this presentation, that is what I encountered the past couple of days. I did a little bit of work last week, like this last couple of days. I got it.
He reached out early.
I got some more slides to do. So the 5 Agile best practices for VAs. And if you see them and you're like, oh, I know these all, you can walk out, it's okay. We're going to talk about minimum viable product and identifying. We're going to talk about continuous stakeholder collaboration. We're going to talk about iterative requirements gathering. backlog refinement participation, and if you don't get what that is, you will when I get there, and you'll be like, oh yes, this is my man right here. And then finally, using AI tools. So the first one is minimum viable product, also called MVP, which I hope you all have heard. But if you've not heard that, don't feel bad, because I think it's one of those terms I learned in the last 10 years. In college, I didn't hear it. My first couple of jobs, nobody talked about MVP, and all of a sudden it became this word everybody knows. It's not the most valuable player. That's how I always thought it was in sports. So I hope you know it doesn't mean the most important thing that you're working on. But next slide, we talk about how we're defining minimum viable product. And so the definition is the smallest testable product version delivering real user value and meeting key business goals. So I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions about that? Does everybody understand what that means and how that's different than high priority or must-have?
You were saying that MVP is not the most important thing you can do, but if you are also trying to convey this is the thing that actually will deliver real user value and is what's needed to do those key business goals, is that not the most important thing you could do?
It could be the most important thing, you're right. But in terms of getting the smallest piece of it out that's usable and testable, that's where the term minimum viable product comes from. So like an example I'd always have is, say you needed to send emails to people who you're doing business with. If your system only captures the email addresses and the people's names, and it can show it to you, but you can't export it, you can't mail it directly out of the app, you're still able to do your job. You can copy the emails out of the app, paste them in Outlook, and you can still do it. But if you're making the app, you didn't capture the email field, then you're not meeting your minimum viable product. You cannot email people. You cannot. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean the app has to do it. It should still enable the other steps to go. Is that a good analogy? That makes sense? Same like with reporting. People want to have great reports. It takes time. But if you have somebody who's a great SQL developer and they can have access to the database and pull reports for you, that might get you to where you need to be and allow you to continue to work in other areas, and eventually it will get you to reporting. So there's different levels. If you weren't capturing the fields that you needed in the report, then the developer can't do anything. You still won't be able to make the reports at the end, and so you haven't mentioned minimum viable product.
I think the word I would add to it is that it's usable product, minimum usable product, because whatever definition it's going to fulfill, it has to be in some way usable to the user. And if not usable, then it's not serving through.
That's a very good point. I'm sure we've all dealt with teams like this, but they're like, can we just do a feature flag and turn it off, but we'll still release it? I almost ask, why are we doing any work towards something that we're not going to give to the users? Right. So that's the thing. You have if you're going back to addresses, if you're giving somebody an address and you're like, yeah, we don't have the validated zip code, we're not going to do zip code at all, and you roll out everything else, it's not doing its job. You still need to get the addresses. So the minimum viable product would be have a field for zip code, run with that for a while, and then if you do get the validated zip code, awesome. If you don't, you can still get whatever your mailings are.
So I think one of the things that we run into with MVP is the definition of it for different people, whether it's line of business, whether it's your developers, whether it's your higher ups. Everybody has a different definition of it.
People outside of like application development will think it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's the most valuable, the most whatever acronym they want to make up. That's what they think.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then what's important to them might not be important to the other person that works on the team, and so on and so forth. So it's really key functionality that, like you said, makes it where you can get the email out, and not necessarily some of the cited stuff that you can, I would say, have a workaround for the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say one of the challenges that I'm currently facing is, so when I hear MVP, I think that this is something that can be done within 2 to 3 sprints, right? For the most part, right? Some kind of usable, valuable component that can be used. What I'm learning on the product team that I'm working with now is that, oh yeah, like what could be the bare minimum thing? I mean, could we get something out in about a month or a month and a half? And I know there's like the bare minimum thing. I mean, it's gonna take us 4 months, 5 months, right? They call that 4 months, that's our MVP. But is it MVP or is it like business as usual? Because the standard for getting the products similar to this, if you're going taking a more predictive approach, is the same time frame. So
When parents are talking about, a lot of people refer to it as like a walking skeleton of an application. You can use it, and if you imagine a skeleton walking, it's doing a normal job walking, but it would do a much better job with muscles and tendons and organs and eyeballs and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's enough to be usable, serve a purpose.
I don't think there is a time frame for MVP development. I don't think you have to have it done within a month or 2 months.
Sure.
I think it can take 6 months. The example I was always given was car. So car needs wheels, needs a seat and a steering wheel. It does not need lights, it does not need the window, it does not need the roof, it does not need blinker or any of that. To be the minimum viable product, it needs to be done. But to develop that, it will still take 6 months.
Sure.
So that's why.
Okay.
That's exactly like where you're running with the definitions of things, like people don't have a definition with diamonds, so that's
Those are like future.
Oh, I think we're preaching the message. Hold
It's
up.
one of the 500 that Shervin.
That's not what I'm talking today, but yeah, definition done, we can spend a whole day on.
It definitely depends on the project too, because it could be a 0 to 100 project, and MVP is 50% of that. And I mean, ideally, that could take 6-8 months, depending on how big of a scope you have for this. Because you can't just put out, half of a product that's working, and it's a time frame.
I can't say, I'll give you a car in 2 weeks from zero. I can't say that to add business point, right? So I get it.
Davis brought up one of the magic word scope, which I didn't cover too much in here, but when you discuss deadlines, that you can have an MVP deadline, which is getting the skeleton walking and you're able to do transactions. And then there's the scope of the entire project, which could be infinite, which could be 2 years. And so often budgets are tied to a walking skeleton. Sometimes it's more than a proof of concept, a walking skeleton, and then there's the whole full life cycle of the new project coming through. And so going to the last one, the iterative improvement, that reference that Agnes did about the car is a perfect example. You want to get the car running, right? Cars don't need air conditioning. Cars don't necessarily have to have a radio. Right? Texas, Houston need air conditioning.
Absolutely.
But if you think even smaller scale, step one might be a guy walking and dropping something off. Step two, to make it better, skateboard. Step three could be a bicycle. The next iteration could be one of those scooters that people have that are all powered. And then you get your car. My point is, you may get to where you need to be at the bicycle stage and not spend the money developing a car. And so it's saving capital, it's saving your mental health, writing requirements for things you may not ever make. And so it enables iterative improvement. All right, so here's a BA's role in it. Clarifying product vision. And if you guys have never worked with product vision, a product vision is a 1 or 2 sentence statement that defines what you are working on for the scope of your project, for the 6 months or 2 years. We need to, it's not make an app, it's we need to deliver a solution that gets bagels made and built and delivered better than our competitors. And so you go back to all the work that you're bringing in and say, does it tie back to our product vision? And is the product vision clear enough that our stakeholders, our users, and our development team understands? Understanding the user needs. Personas is something we'll talk about one day, but understanding who our users are, because I'm sure we've all worked with something where we overbuilt something. We might have gold-plated a project. We may have put things in places where our users don't do it. Our users were not expected to be. And so understanding the user needs help us to get things out as quickly as possible, finding out what is MVP and what is not, and also not wasting time.
And I would caution on this one to identify the right user, because like you mentioned about there could be executive person that has different needs than the actual user. When you're building the MVP, you're really focusing on the end user. You're really focusing on the person who's actually going to open the report or open the app and draw the information from it. Because yes, the CEO executive may have a need or information that they need to pull from it, but they're not going to be the end user.
But at the same time, though, that they are I see what you're saying. So user versus, trying trying to think of the other definition, but they're still a stakeholder, right? That
Stakeholder.
executive, you're right. User, your example,
Yeah,
Agnes, is
user is
perfect
stakeholder.
for a user, right?
Yeah.
That executive is oh my gosh, I'm trying to find the right stakeholder definition for that executive, but they matter. That's the one I'm trying to make. They absolutely,
they write
absolutely matter.
they write the signature.
Yeah, but
that's
they
really
may
what
not
it is.
matter
Yeah.
in the MVP definition.
Sure, okay.
Because if they need some kind of a report or some kind of a data from the application, it's gonna be a data that already in some way either the user is inputting or the user is receiving, the end user. Is either putting their address, their phone number, their whatever information, and somehow the executive needs the report. So they're the secondary recipient of the information.
Like an example of what Agnes is saying is like, if you're running all of your, if you gather my requirements from your executive who's sitting in an air conditioned office and who has access to, maybe they want to be able to use on their phone. Right. If you're real users in a facility with safety clothes on, designing something to a phone would be the worst thing, and you're handing it to them and they're like, I wish you had asked us. We have, we go back and we work on a laptop, and then you have to make sure that the MVP is what one of the user personas that you guys classify like as an ideal user is being met. User personas, that's a whole
That's a whole topic on its own, but yes, but you're right.
In the car example, the safety and security of the car, the regulations that it meets, and so on and so on, the stakeholder is going to make sure that this happens. But when you're designing the MVP, you're designing seat, wheel, and the steering wheel, because that's what the end user is going to do. So I'm not talking about like designing the whole tool or the whole product. I'm just talking about MVP purely.
I see what you're saying, and I agree. And I found the stakeholder word I was using for customer, right?
Yes.
User versus a customer,
Yes.
right? Like I would say the user in this example is that person on the work floor that needs the gloves to be able to type or whatever. My customer may be absolutely. I can't remove the customer. The executive, I can't say that they don't matter.
No.
Right?
They do matter.
So I need to account for them as a customer, stakeholder, or something, right? But even though I'm making and building the MVP for the end user, so that's what I was trying to get to. But yeah, I think
Quick
wins.
example, we actually talked.
Quick wins.
correct.
I talked about this with another BA, like friend Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel, yeah.
I didn't use the words MVP, but I told her like, I had to get this. I was like, don't worry, you just need the car seat and an bassinet.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, the first couple of weeks of being a new mother, it's great to have, but you need the baby to be near you, and then you need to be able to get the baby home. Everything else,
Right.
you'll figure out.
I figured it out, yeah.
Bottled up. I mean, maybe not, but like minimum, you need somewhere to lay the baby down, and then get them home. But for the collaboration, the last one, the trade-offs is one of those things I really like, because product owners hate it when you come to them and they're like, I have to have this, and you're like, okay, but would you trade that for this? And like, no, of course not. I need that. It has to be done. Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like it's that MVP. No, I have to have it, but would you trade it for this? Like, no, that has to stay there. And then you eventually realize, okay, maybe the report isn't as MVP as we need, or maybe everything being color coded is not as important. So it allows collaboration. Sometimes it allows for conflict too, but it's a very good talking point. So guiding questions for business analysts about MVPs. What's the main problem we're trying to solve? If it's delivering bagels to people and we're talking about marketing in our meetings, maybe that's not part of it. If it was our biggest problem is we have poor sales and marketing becomes MVP. Which users' actions are critical to deliver initial value? It didn't say all values, it's initial. So what gets us off the ground? What can we exclude and still provide a usable product? That goes back to what can we whittle away from everything, all the fluff, and say this is all we need to create an order. This is all we need to put together a computer. This is all we need to make a delivery and collect revenue. What risks or assumptions are we testing with this MVP? So what are we judging everything by? Well, a question we often don't always ask. Like we think of success as we got it coded and it's tested, no bugs, we're good. But how do we measure failure? Because if you deliver something that's bug-free and it works and nobody uses it, is it valuable, right? And going back to what I said earlier, if you could have X or Y, which would it be? to drive people crazy, but that's a great way, the question for business analysts to ask people when you're working at a step of, is this MVP or is this not? So after you've done your thing with MVP, you should have a clear MVP definition agreed upon by all stakeholders, that the definition will be agreed upon. Everybody may not agree that their work item is MVP or not, but the definition of what an MVP is will be clear. You have a prioritized backlog, document assumptions, success metrics, that's something we often leave out, but going back to how do we know what we did is meaningful, is valuable, and a shared understanding of what comes next after MVP is done. So after you got the walking skeleton, how do you add the tendons? How do you add the muscle? How do you add the organs? All right, next one, continuous stakeholder collaboration, excuse me. And again, going back to stakeholders. If you're on a development team, you are a stakeholder. Stakeholder doesn't mean you have senior manager or lead engineer title or CIO. It's, do you have a vested interest in this? Does this affect your daily life and your work? That includes users, that includes managers, that includes managers in HR who might have information going into the site. It includes managers of data back and forth. So are we engaging them the right way? So we need to have continuous collaboration that ensures all stakeholders remain involved. So what I mean by that is, when I first became a BA, you would meet with somebody, you'd sit down for 2 or 3 days, you get all of the requirements, and then you'd be like, I'll see you in 6 months. And you hope nothing changed. But the way that we work now is you don't want to produce anything that's wasteful. So you need to have constant engagement. Not every day, that would be great, but you gauge that. If it's a senior VP, you only have a few hours, maybe a week, or maybe even a few minutes. So you gauge that and make the best use. You get alignment on goals and priorities. Regular meetings, whether it's sprint reviews or catch-up call that you have a regular day of work, it allows you to realign on what is important. Building trust and ownership. How many of y'all delivered something in the first sprint and people are looking at you like, who are you? I've never seen you here, right? And that's fine, that's normal. But when they see your face over and over again, and you ask questions, or you write them an email and say, hey, can I come by and talk to you about this? You mentioned this in the sprint review. It seemed meaningful. That trust is built. And then when they see you deliver something like, oh, those guys can do great work. I have this big idea. Let me sit down with somebody on the team and work with them. That doesn't just happen out of the blue. That happens because you built that trust. And delivering continuous business value, right? The collaboration, the changing to deliver the way things are. And we've all had this, you're working on something, there's a shift in the market, and all of a sudden what you're working on is not as valuable, or maybe not valuable at all anymore. So you need to be able to have that information to stop what you're doing, pivot, and then start anew. The BA's role, the outcomes with stakeholder engagement. You have the stakeholder identification engagement. That's like the first step. Who's the stakeholder, right? It's not everybody in IT. It's not everybody in finance. It's a finance-based project. It could be key people, people from HR, people from sales, people from operations. We need to identify who it is that are stakeholders. Facilitate transparent communication. I just did this part of one of my courses. I just took, you're going to send a very different message to a senior manager who's going to be working the app every day versus what you're going to be sending to your CIO. The CIO may want to have a summary email at the end of the quarter, whereas the senior manager wants an email or wants a face-to-face meeting once a week. So you need to be able to identify how are we going to have the conversation. There's conflict management and feedback. Some of these I'm going to go through a little quicker because they're self-explanatory, but managing the conflict you might have and feedback. And conflict's not bad. Conflict is how you figure out how do people operate. This person has said about something, let's do this and rebuild that trust or establish more trust.
I'm going to piggyback on you. Actually, I might pick on you a little bit, but that's why they say that BAs can make good Scrum Masters too, just because of that conflict management piece.
Yeah, that's a big issue, especially with architects and not even senior devs, but some of the just actual developers that we work with is they're just kind of, there's a lot of issues with not wanting to have conflict and just saying okay rather than questioning. So that causes a lot of issues with our development is people aren't asking enough questions because they don't want conflict, where they should trust our team to be able to handle that and manage that. Because if we can get the whole scope of it, the whole understanding of why people are asking questions, then we can really get down to the root cause of, hey, this would be better, or this would be more use of our time, rather than you just telling the team, like, hey, do this, do this, do this.
if you have questions because you care,
Yeah.
those are the best questions you ask. Because if you're like, oh, that's gonna work, or that tech doesn't do that, what you're hoping for, or we don't have, I mean, we've all dealt with this, we don't have the skills in our office to do what they're hoping for. It may not be in front of all 20 senior SVPs, but make it known to the one that you're closest with, or the one you think would respond well. That you brought up this good point. We don't have anybody that does that here, so we need to hire somebody or pivot. But I'm sure they'd rather hear that then, and they may be a little upset right at that moment, than 6 months later when they're like, "Why didn't you tell us?"
Absolutely.
So for the outcomes, there's a lot of them there, but one of the ones I want to highlight is the faster decisions. The sooner you get things to your stakeholders, whether it's a user in a facility a million miles away, the other side of the world, or somebody's in the C-suite, you want to be able to make the decisions quickest so you can start iteratively improving where you're working.
I'm going to ask one thing is, with the conflict pieces, you might, and I've had this happen a lot of times, is even if you've gotten all the requirements correctly, and the BAs are working great, product owners are working great, and the development team's going through, and you do exactly what stakeholders ask, once you deliver it, and this is why we do Agile, they might get it in their hands and they start working it and they say, this sucks. We hate this. But they did it in 3 weeks rather than, 6 months. So I'd rather not, how do you take that, not take that to heart, because you obviously just used 3 weeks of your work, 3 work weeks to go through that, and you just kind of let it roll off. And I feel like Agile and iterative pieces have helped me kind of not take stuff so personally, because I'm just like, okay, you didn't like it, cool, let's go do it again.
You're very right.
That's what you do with Agile.
Yeah.
So you can accommodate
Just
the
figuring it
change
out.
of their mind, right? Because it could be that you delivered exactly what they wanted and they just look at it and like, but that doesn't serve my purpose, right?
Yeah.
They didn't know. They did their best in describing it and you did the best in developing it, just doesn't work. But that's why Agile is the perfect way to do it, because then it's built in time to be able to accommodate.
Exactly. And the good example I have that even happened today is I have a project manager who went to her notes from April and June and July, and our stakeholder is like, oh, well, this is what I was thinking back then. I was like, yeah, but you can see in our meetings since then, you've thought differently and brought it forward because you started testing this stuff and being like, well, I actually don't like that, and so on and so forth. So let's not go back to April and bring back those ideas, because we've been through the whole process. This is the reason why you said you wanted this, so let's stay with this.
I think the example that Dave's talking about that comes to mind is it could be as simple as the sign-up sheet, right? I want people's email addresses every they give it to us. So we make an online sign-up sheet and we make email required. And you can't, when you hit submit, if you don't have email, it doesn't log anything. And so now people are like, I don't want to give my email. I'm not going to sign up at all. So now you have no sign-up information at all. Whereas before, the paper form had first name, last name, and you had a way of identifying people. But you didn't know, it was a great idea, but you didn't know in the beginning that that was going to make things actually worse than better. Or let's capture all these billing address, regular address, phone numbers, and then you spend 10 minutes before you can even get to the actual order. So these are things you may not, the requirements may all be right in the beginning, but you don't know until you start putting things in place. And so in this slide deck, I'm happy to share out. So these questions, though, I think they will definitely help. So who needs to be involved in this decision, and at what stage? It's a good question for BAs.
Yes.
Are all relevant perspectives represented? So are we talking about IT only, or are you talking about sales who's actually going to be using the app? Or are you talking about the product life cycle of the actual product you're selling, about people who are doing manufacturing? Are we asking them if this works? Do they have screens everywhere? Are they supposed to be using their phones? Are we taking all these people into account? How do we ensure everyone has the same understanding of scope and goals? Right? It's a 2-year project. The 2-year project is putting up and standing up the application, not the actual manufacturing point. Right? It could be as simple as that, and you're like, well, that's not the same goal we have. We have to talk about things. What's the best way to communicate and update to each group? This varies. Face-to-face would be ideal, but that's not ideal for leaving with documentation. So sometimes it's email, sometimes it's a Teams message, sometimes it's a full-on technical detail, sometimes it's just an overview. So one message doesn't do it for everything.
also need to include cadence in there too. It's just the vehicle, it makes a lot of sense, but is that always, hey, we need to see weekly, but always via email, or sometimes we need to see an actual meeting catch up and have this entirely different contact that is needed.
Very right. Feedback loops. Are we having things in place to make sure that we're doing things the right way? Whether it's a sprint retrospective or a SWOT analysis at the end of something, are we looking at the way we're doing things and making sure that we're doing things in some way that make things better than before? And how are we tracking and addressing stakeholder concerns? All questions that should be asked, or at least thought about whenever you guys are doing things with your teams. The results achieved: ongoing alignment between business and delivery teams, higher stakeholder satisfaction and engagement. They know what's being worked on, and they can see it being done, or at least they have an idea of when it's coming. They'll be a lot happier. Reduce scope churn through early visibility and consensus. Faster decision making supported by shared understanding, and improve product quality through continuous feedback and validations. All right, next one, iterative requirement gatherings. Are we gathering the right requirements at the right time? So do we have the requirements we need when we need them? And so the iterative requirement evolution, Agile captures requirements iteratively, allowing early ideas and ongoing feedback to shape solutions progressively. The BA role is to maintain clarity, traceability, and business value by facilitating refinements and defining acceptance criteria. Agile techniques tools like the 3 Amigos session, time boxing, which supports iterative development. Other tools are like planning and estimation, things like that. The outcome of effective facilitation is yields a lean backlog, evolving requirements, clear acceptance criteria, and traceability to business value. I'm sure I have a slide on. Oh,
Yeah, I was asking about that.
what are the 3 Amigos? Do you guys?
I'm not.
So this is an old movie. These
Oh,
three
yeah.
guys.
Oh, no, I know the movie.
But-
Yeah, I know the movie, but I'm not aware of the technique.
The 3 Amigos is not really a technique, it's just getting somebody from the team who handles business analysis, getting somebody who tests, and getting somebody who develops together to discuss how we're going to do requirements. So if you take one of these out, you can have requirements, but they're going to be lacking in one way or the other. And all these 3 roles, it could be rolled up into one person, right? Somebody could be really experienced and know how to do all these types of things, but you need to have these types of functions available in those types of meetings.
I feel like that's really hard to do when you have different types of developers.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going through a sprint. So, I mean, at least from my experience with the QA piece is that QA will be there they should be there. QAs in my mind are also really part of the development team. I would consider them also developers because they're developing all their test cases, making sure that everything is running correctly, and sometimes going through and looking through the code. But the first start of the sprint, they're going through and creating the test cases, and then they're waiting until the development gets back to them. But their time is a little at the front. Developers, I feel like, are always on, always working, and don't want to be in meetings. So it's kind of hard to get those 3 amigos together because your business analyst is going through and trying to think of the future by also answering questions and also answering the questions during the sprint. But
it's a very valid point.
it's very hard to get all 3 in a meeting together just to make it a ceremony. So
Doesn't always work out, but my suggestion would be you schedule them and then you have a cadence. You have refinements Tuesdays at 9, and you make sure the BA and QA are available those times. You don't have it right before the end of the sprint. You don't have it the day after planning because everybody starts to think. You have days where you can have refinements with those people. And then the developer can switch. I've had many refinements where everybody comes, but maybe you only get one developer. That's fine. It's better than having none. And if the QA can't come, but you have somebody who understands testing, maybe have that developer come, and then you have a BA, somebody who serves that function. But you're right, it's hard. And it's even harder when you don't have a BA or you don't have a QA, which is very common. Sometimes you get a team where you're just running with 3 developers. You still need to have those skill sets there. And so you might have a developer say, I'm not a BA. Yeah, but somebody's coming up with requirements. Somebody's gathering them from somewhere, and we're working from there. And then testing, somebody's looking at what we're doing and saying, yes, we're done, and it works. And so it may not be somebody whose title is quality assurance engineer, but somebody is testing on your team.
So with this, my scenario is pretty fragmented, and I know we talked about this last week even at Lean Beers. That's why I came from that angle. But for us, we just got the doggone company to bring us in from a strategic perspective as BAs. So that's the first hurdle we did. As far as developers, like we have workshops with developers when we need to bring them in, right? So when we need to early, right? But we bring them in, you know, say, hey, this is what we're building. This is kind of, you know, joint application development session, if you will, JAB for short. We do kind of like a pseudo version of that. But as far as QA, because we have a centralized QA team, we don't bring them in that early per se. If we do bring them in that early, it's more for information. But they're not really like, I don't know, servicing requirements with us.
When I was at ABB, we did that.
Right.
We'd send it to a QA team.
Yes, we have
don't
a-
even know who's doing it, but they're running.
They're running the scripts, right? So
That does happen.
Right. So we do collect. I guess what I'm trying to say is that at a moment I'm with 2 of the amigos at a time versus 3 all at once. I don't really have a 3 jointed like, hey, this is a developer with a QA person, a BA. We're all like in the room hashing it out. It's like I'm with the QA team. Hey, what are your user stories? These, and these. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. Go over. And I'm with the developers. That's when I really have finally broken into, because I think I'm a part developer at heart. So I kind of understand where they're coming from. So I kind of like, you know, can get in there with them a little bit. And that's where I really find like the value to get requirements and do all that work. So getting 3 in my scenario is tough, but I hear you saying though, Shervin, is that skill set of someone who has a quality assurance mindset in the room will be valuable as well, but they're not the one that actually doing the testing though. So
Yeah,
it's kinda
ideally,
hard.
with agility, you have dedicated teams. You have people who are like, I'm the QA, I'm the BA for this team, and we meet regularly. But in those situations, if you had to send it to a QA team, maybe there's 3 QAs to work on it. If you wrote them at the beginning of the sprint, like, hey, can I get 1 hour this month? If you guys look at that. You'll get a lot done in that 1 hour with them, and probably avoid a lot of missteps than leaving them out and then letting them just test away without talking to you guys about the requirements. So asking somebody in the moment, especially when you have teams in different countries, it's kind of tough. If you do a little bit of scheduling, it makes it a lot more predictable and things can go a lot better.
QA, they ask a lot of questions, good, like valuable questions, but that's what they do.
Yeah. So key questions you can ask in refinement. What does the core user need? What they kind of do? What value does this deliver? And when I say value, that is such a complicated question, but like value could be dollars spent, dollars saved, reduced headcount, efficiency, sometimes even just user satisfaction. And so knowing what the value is helps drive a better story. Who's the main persona? We talked about that earlier. How will we measure success? Right? Because success isn't we got the feature delivered. It's are they using it? Are they using it effectively? Are they able to do what they've asked us to do quickly? What edge cases should we consider? So the outliers that happen, how do we determine that? It's like, oh, I put in 10,000 zeros because sometimes people just test and they match away. If that's unlikely to happen, but it throws an error, fine. Maybe it has that error because nobody logically would do that on a regular basis. And then why is this needed now? Why are we working on it? Before I get into this, I think I left the slide up. It was one of the things I want to talk about. So like, when you do requirements in an agile manner, like for me, step 1 is you talk to somebody. You get some details, you get some requirements. And for me, the next step is stubs. What I mean by that is adding a user, deleting a user, editing a user, those types of titles. And then the nitty-gritty of that will come later. But when you have that, you're able to look at that and be like, oh, that'll take a week, that'll take a day. You have the ability to have an estimate. And you could build out that whole story, right? Or all of those stories. But if you're not pulling those in the next couple weeks, you may not benefit from having the whole thing filled out and spending so much time up there. So you might just have, I want to be able to add a user. And so it'll sit there. And the next time you come back to it, you can change the user story. I need to add a user because additional users will equal additional revenue. Oh, that makes sense. We want more revenue. might change the priority based on that. Then you need acceptance criteria. How do you know when you're finished? How do we know what a user is? And so then you start getting all that information down. And then it might go on and on and on. But as we all work, sometimes these stories get deprioritized or not needed at all. It would suck if you spent all this time creating all these user stories and then they just get tossed away because, you know, the requirements change or the times change. And so I encourage you to have as much detail as you need. Like, you know, there's sometimes people talk about epics, features, and then product backlog items. Epics are really big, features are big, but not so big, and then product backlog items are smaller ones. Sometimes you're running at the feature level, like when you're doing estimations. And then sometimes you have the product backlog items with just stubs. But make sure before you're pulling them in, before you're getting ready, you have all the information that you need. I should add a slide on that.
So I wanted to ask a question on that because just like the situation I'm in right now, how do you, and this is for one of the projects I'm essentially being a BA on, because we don't really have one on our team for this. So when you have a stakeholder there and you're essentially being the product owner for them too, you have to kind of lead them through the process and everything like this. They don't understand, you know, this iterative requirement gathering, so they want to get you all the details now. And then they have access to Jira, so they can go and look and be like, why haven't you put all the information in there and make sure that it's detailed exactly the way I want it to be, and I can just go back to them and say, we're not going to work on this for 3 months. You know, so how can we be respectful, but then also be respectful for, like you said, time's sake. We're not going to work on this for a while. We have the base of what it's supposed to be. We can gather more detailed requirements later.
One of the roles of an Agilist or a Scrum Master is coaching within the organization so they can understand the Agile process. And so I would say that could be a 30-minute conversation with that person about, it might be you on a whiteboard showing them, this is where we're working, you know, this is the report, we don't even know what fields we're capturing yet, why would I have them in the report? And then walk in the back and they see that. But it makes sense because you're like, why are they on the board if we're not ready for it? Yeah, it's on the board so we can be aware of it. But if we're not close to it, we may not have all the nuts and bolts ready. But I think what they understand about is that you want to have valid items that bring value in the backlog prioritized, and what we're going to be working on is next. And then as things change, things can move up or move down. And they'll understand this. It's like, would you make school lunches for your kids all on the first day of the month?
Yeah.
No, right? Because it's not all useful. It wouldn't be useful. Things would go to waste. And so I think finding out whatever way makes sense to them, but realizing that their concern is valid. Yeah, there's a lot of things we have to get done, but we can't start working on it if we're spending the whole time doing the requirements all the way from the top to bottom. It's basically a waterfall.
Yeah. And I mean, some people just don't, no matter how much you try to coach, they just won't get it. I guess the best way I can understand it, the same user is our primary user for our user acceptance testing. And she'll go through and do the whole workflow even though it's not ready. So she's like, brings back some feedback and says, well, this is not working because blah, 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 blah. And I said, this story that we're going to be working on next sprint to fix that. So it's hard to explain to people, hey, you know, like you said, we're working on the car and you can't get in and test drive it fully yet, but you can go and sit on the seats and it's nice and it looks good, but we don't have the full feature ready yet. But we want you to test this so you know, hey, this is how we're getting up to this point. So I think it's just also trying to give them understanding, like you said, coach them, and maybe in their own way so they understand it a little better. But it's hard when people aren't coachable, I guess. They want to think it their own way.
When I coached youth sports for like 10 years, and so one of the things you learn is that telling somebody you just have to do this with the ball and it's going to magically do the dribbling that I'm doing doesn't work for some. Some is just like they start and they do it. Some of them, Coach Shervin, I put my hand here but the ball doesn't come back, and it's like it's really dropping. You know, you have to teach them step by step, and you have to do it like a different way. I remember I was teaching a kid to catch. You know, he was scared of the ball hitting him in the face. And so I just remember my kids, I was like, I talked to the parents, I was like, go to IKEA, there's a plush soccer ball there, hits in the face, he's not gonna cry. Nobody wants, getting hit in the face sucks, right? It's such a But that was different than how I would teach somebody else. And so like, which is very valid, whether it's at home, youth sports, what the coaching method you use for one person, it might work 10 times in a row. But then you hit somebody else, and as a coach, you should know, I gotta go back and do something else. And it might not be the gut feeling like, oh, it didn't work. Go back, research, figure something out, and be like, hey man, you like fishing, right? You know when you do this, and all of a sudden the guy's like, oh, that makes so much sense, right? Because basketball may not have been a good analogy, or software development didn't make sense to him at that moment. But yeah, different ways. So the benefits, backlog stays alive, lean, and current. Requirements is all with the pace of discovery. That's what I was saying, as you find more, you add more details. Acceptance criteria, clean, testable, and valuable. Team avoids wasteful over-detailing early on. That's a big pointer. And stakeholder traceability from value to delivery. And we get into the next slide. It's one of the ones I'm excited about because I think those are powering slides. So backlog refinement participation. Everyone, yes, everyone participates. Does that make sense? Do you guys ever sit there and then you're the only one writing? People are just talking to you. Nobody has a computer open, or they're leaning back, or they're eating, you know, whatever, and they're just like, oh, you spelled the wrong. I do that all the time. I put TEH instead, and you know, it's the worst. It's one of the worst things. And so, the teams who we find together shine together, right? As funny as it sounds, you want everybody with BA skills. They may not want to be a BA for everything, but they need to learn how to be able to go out, gather requirements, and come back to the team and be like, I got this information. So what I mean by that is that it's not just I ask the questions and then they start talking to the BA and be like, hey, when you're not writing this down, write it down. You want to encourage everybody to go into the backlog, put the information down, format it the way that we do. Like, you know, if we do put bullets all the time, don't bring numbers into you know, ADO and start changing stuff up. Do it the same way. And so, shared ownership and refinement. Agile practices promote the entire team's involvement in backlog refinement, spreading responsibility beyond the BA. And if you've ever been on one of my teams, I tell everybody the same thing about testing. We all test, whether you want to or not. You may not be a developer, you may not be a QA, but you can go in and hit play and go step by step and hit the plus sign or the minus sign, things went well, and then hit save at the end and create a bug. That's not hard. Right? Everybody can do this, and so everybody can type. Like this, I don't know if this happens to everybody else, but like on a bad refinement day, my back gets super sweaty, and like I always make that reference to people. Like everybody's back needs to sweat at some point. People need to see how slow of a typer you are, because you might have the jokes doing the you spelled it the wrong. But once everybody has sweat a little bit, they become a lot more understanding, and they become a lot more like, yeah, I'll make that change. I'll go in there and put it through. You'll have people who email you or screenshot stuff, and they're just like, hey, can you put this in? I'm like, can you do it? You can work a screenshot up and do all this kind of stuff. Can you just make the changes?
I think one of the worst things is like people, I mean, refinement backlog gets a bad rap for a ceremony because people see it as what you're saying, just somebody sitting there gathering requirements, typing them up. Gather requirements, typing them up. And then it's just like developers are like, why am I on this meeting? Because it's just Davis going through and typing this stuff up, or you know, this doesn't pertain to me because we haven't gotten to my portion yet, so we'll get to it next time, and so on and so forth. So I think that's an excellent point to make it, where if everybody is in it and has like a shared aspect, then there's going to be a lot more participation and understanding.
It avoids the question
it's hard to do that too.
Tapping when we get to testing. No,
yeah.
We're doing the requirements, that's what you're going to be testing on, right?
Right.
That's yeah, very
and then it avoids questions because everybody has seen the story, everybody understands the story, you know, you've done it together, and if everybody's asked their questions, then there shouldn't be mid-sprint questions, you know, stuff like that. So.
Or if the mid-sprint questions, it's a surprise to everybody and everybody gets together on the answer.
My argument, whenever I do backlog refinement, is I cannot know what your needs are. Like, I don't do your job, so I may not know what you need to test. I may not know what you need to code. So in that sense, I'm like, that's why I need you here. I need you to participate because I'm gonna write it in whatever way I understand. But if it doesn't fit your needs, then it's useless.
No, that's one of the things I've always had issues with is do you make it technical or do you make it less technical, more viable for somebody that is a stakeholder to read the story and understand
You
it?
have a whole power line distinction.
Oh, yeah.
I live in that world. It's like, yeah, I can.
Because a developer might see that and say, oh, we missed that because you didn't put it in there. You know? That's why we even do
but I
like
will talk
separate
about that.
stories on subtasks just for the technical team. So they see the overarching piece, but this says for devs, you know, and then boom, it has all the technical, you know, A&D documentation that they're used to be able to go and push that through. So
And so the BA is a facilitator and coach, not a scribe. What I mean by that is you're not responsible for writing down every single thing.
Right.
And the benefits of shared refinement, shared backlog refinements improves story quality, engagement, ownership, and allows the BA to focus on strategy as well. I'm going to say this confidently, but you may not believe me. I haven't had somebody point their finger at me and say, you left that out of the requirements in probably 12 years. And I can say that because my teams from day one, I tell people, this is our story. So the whole QA didn't find it, you didn't code it right, it's our bug, it's our story. Something is left out, we missed it because we refined it together, we reviewed it together, we put the acceptance criteria together, we decided to pull it in together, we tested out together, and something got left out. We all got left out. But with that, we celebrate together. Like we say, it's a great story. At the same time, like in our retros, I'll be like, Dave has killed it on this. He didn't know how to do it before. He found help, or he sat down and did this analogy. So people get their flowers, they feel the praise, but at the same time, they realize we are in this together. When things don't go right, there's less finger pointing, and it's more of just like, what do we do next? Let's talk about it, guys. So when you do that with your team, you get people on board with, this is ours, I need your input. I'm just one person, and if I write down every single thing I'm told, it's not going to be accurate. A lot of things change. And so, the old way, the traditional way, the BA defines, documents, explains requirements, and the team implements it. There are teams that still do this today, right? In the modern way, the whole team participates in refining stories. Understanding user needs, defining acceptance criteria, BA becomes a facilitator and coach, guiding others to think analytically and user-centrically. Also, I think I might have another slide, but like getting people to make changes to backlog items or requirements outside of refinement. You find something wrong, don't wait 4 days to put it in there. Go in and make the change. And some of that might be a fear of the tool.
That's a sign of maturity too. A mature team would do that, right? They would go in and update or re-refine or refine or pre-refine, I would call it, and they would even re-estimate even once they dive in and learn that, oh crap, this isn't a 1 pointer, this is like a 500. Like, and when they bring it up in the sync or whatever. So that's more of a sign of maturity, along with someone taking on the responsibility of the business analyst capability as well.
How does the BA enable team-wide participation? You foster a safe, inclusive environment. You know, when somebody does the whole, you can't spell I worked with this guy and proved one time he spelled TEH all the time too, maybe y'all went to the same school. Maybe you say, it's really not that funny, man, we're trying to work on this. So you kind of make it a safe environment where there's types of name calling or role-based activities, and everybody does it. We're all gonna do it together. And then talking isn't just allowed, it's required. Everybody in the team needs to contribute. And sometimes we do have silent people on the team. You might have a quieter BA or a new member of the team or a developer who does a lot of thinking at their desk and they want to come back to it. Bring them in. Don't be like, it's your turn to talk, but be like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? How are you going to approach testing? Is this included in regression? Do we need to make this size a bit bigger? Asking those questions especially when you see people haven't put in some information that'll help, really, brings things out. And this one, but it gets its own slide. actively facilitate collaboration and shared ownership. So run iterative, team-driven refinements. You can't have everybody there, have as many people as you can. Keep the cadence, for most Scrum teams, we would meet twice a week, on Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour, 1 hour, and we meet the following Tuesday and Thursday. It was a cycle of new requirements, build out the requirements. Let's estimate, and then start the next one, because it'd be the next time. But it's 3 hours across 80 hours a work week. It's not that long. And it allows to have that collaboration. And so you want to have people do it. Again, asking people their thoughts, how should we test? I've done this. Whose turn is it to type today? Rock, scissors, paper, and that person who did it last time is not in the competition. Usually by the second or third time, people would volunteer. They'll be like, I got it, I'll do it this time. But the rock, scissors, paper makes it a little bit loose. And then put some laughter in, but it's also some randomness. Like, it's like nobody's picking on anybody. But if you have to do that, it's not a bad thing. Right? And I think I already covered this earlier, reminding people, change the requirements along the way. Don't wait till the actual session. And it might be one of the most important slides. Questions to ask the team refinements. There's a lot of questions here, so let's read through them. Again, I'll get the slide deck out to you guys, but who's the story for, and what problem did it solve? Right? What assumptions are we making? Are we assuming they're using a tablet? Do they have tablets? Are we making it for iOS tablets and forgetting about Android? What are the key success conditions? What can go wrong? Edge cases. Is the story small enough to bring in? And is it testable? Right? That's the question I think it doesn't get asked enough. How does the story tie back to our MVP or release goal? Right? Are we doing cosmetic things when we're still worried about getting the skeleton in its leg to be able to walk? How do we know when the story is done? Do we have a definition of done? Do we have acceptance criteria? Are we missing any feedback from stakeholders? Does the team have the skills to complete this? That question might hurt a little bit,
Yeah.
but it hurts a lot less if you can be an advocate for your team and say, hey, we don't have this, we need somebody with BI skills to make this report.
Right.
Nobody's going to learn this in a day. Saying that earlier, then trying to do the report, and why is it not working? He's been in IT for 10 years, but he's never worked in reporting. And nobody brought it up before. What feedback from users or stakeholders impacts the story? How might this impact other parts of the system or workflow? And what would make this story easier or faster to deliver? You don't have to ask those questions all the time, but it's stuff you should be thinking about.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
The outcomes of shared participation and refinements, higher shared ownership of the backlog, fewer misunderstandings of rework or rework during development, improved quality of user stories and acceptance criteria, increased team engagement and motivation, and the VA's time is free to focus on discovery, stakeholder alignment, and business value. There's one that's kind of encapsulated in all of these, but it's how many times have you ever had developers be like, I'll do it, but I don't know what's the point of it, what's the value in this? When you talk about an refinement and you're committed to it, to all the stories equally, either the value will be apparent to you, or you have the safe space to ask, why are we doing this? Why do they care so much about these colors, these indicators? They're like, oh, they need to know where the ones that are late are. Oh, that makes sense. We need to have revenue. Versus, I'll do it, but it doesn't matter. Now you have ownership for it. All right, the last tool. The last of the 5. Using AI tools. Let AI do the routine work so you can focus on what requires thoughtful analysis. The BA behaviors to embrace with AI. Automate user feedback analysis. Man, these tools I took for training are so great because remember during COVID, it was such a, I guess you call it a blessing, to have the transcript that you had to read through on your own, or to have the video you got to rewatch again of the meeting you attended. Man, just run it through like this one called a Notebook LM. Oh my God, you can just put PDFs into it and it'll make a podcast and a video for you.
That's Google.
While it's amazing. Like you can, if somebody's giving you like a 5-hour YouTube video to watch, this tool will do it and make you a shorter video. It'll summarize it for you. You can make a 2-person podcast about it, free. But where else do you take 5 PDFs and have to say, analyze this and give me the important thing? You can ask your questions. So you get all the feedback you have. What do you do with it? Do you go through it by hand? Do you turn it? No, put it into these LLMs and have it do it. Generate and refine user stories. again, like anything, you always want to verify what you get out of these AI sources. But if you're saying, I'm building this app for this, and I'm doing the user management section, what are the user stories you see? And it gives you a list, and like, that sounds good. I need titles and acceptance criteria, enter, and also gives you 10 of them. And then you're like, hey, which ones did I forget? What's the next level of importance? You hit enter, and it gives it to you again. That is like, there's no way that I've ever been able to make 50 or 60 user stories for a project in a day before AI. I mean, on a good day, maybe you get 10 or 15 and you're just like working nonstop. But you can crank out 60 high quality ones. And it's not just copy and paste, it's 60 and then you're going through them, but you're doing the reviewing. Right? So like, these things weren't available to us before. I mean, maybe you can copy and paste some of your old ones. But now, and as you go down, as you go through the prompt, it learns from the other ones and it's adding stuff. Like if you're saying, stop using stars, use numbers, all the input outputs are going to have that. So it makes life so much easier. Detecting patterns, summarize stakeholder input. When those people have a long conversation and it's about stuff you may not understand because you're focused on your project and they're talking about credits and debits, so they're talking about the orders, and you're like, I haven't met anybody from that team yet. Take the transcript, throw it in, ask it to explain it to you. I've asked it to explain it to like a 13-year-old before, but I didn't need the 5-year-old explanation. But if you did it to like somebody my age, it'd be way too complex. And then I got a handle of it, but like, there's so many different ways you can interact with AI to help make things easier for you. Maybe this is the second most important slide. Okay, here we go. Questions you might ask your AI source. These are the details of my feature, right? I'm assuming you're pasting something in. Can you build out the MVP backlog items under this feature? And it's like an 8-second thing. And it would just spit it all out to you. And then you could be like, no, too much detail, or stop putting emojis in this, and then it'll just keep going until it's the way you want it. I use it all the time. What acceptance criteria is missing? Because sometimes you take stuff out of it, copy paste, and you work with it, and you miss something. You put it back in, it'll fill it for you. Very valuable. Can this be broken down and the pieces provide value? How would you do it? It'll give it to you. I use it all the time, can you prioritize the backlog by value for my customer? Yes. And you can go to the backlog and be like, hey, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yeah,
Because they might have a priority, like, hey, have you thought about this? And they're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. And you may not even have a clue why you're suggesting it. But if AI tells it to you, you can ask AI, any of the AI agents, why is this all of a sudden higher than what was originally there? And you have an explanation. Can you help my team create a product vision in less than 2 sentences? If you guys have worked at agility, product vision is so hard at the beginning. Everybody's got their opinion, they all have the thing, and you're picking your words. In the last training I did, we did it like in 8 minutes. It was just, and what I was ended up doing, I was like too long. And I would take it from a paragraph down, and I was like, just 2 sentences. And we do it, you're just like, oh my gosh, I've spent so many hours doing product vision. And it's important because that's what's guiding all of your work for the product. And now, it's just so much faster, and it's so much more accurate. And it's accurate because you're not just copying and pasting, you're like, no, it's not right. This is not the priority. Change it, and then you get to it. Can you identify gaps or inconsistencies in our backlog? Did you forget all the edits? All the edit features, and you only have ads, right? That can happen. Did you forget the disabling? I've done that many times. Like, do you think about add and edit? How do you turn users off? How might we rephrase the story to better reflect user value, right? Make this red, right? Why are we changing the color? Oh, it shows people who are late or things that are past their expiration date or certifications falling out of date. That's important. Here are my 30 backlog items. Which are MVP? I use it all the time. This is exactly about which are MVP, which are higher priority, and which are nice to have. Man, that helps with efforting, but like, how do you do it when you might know you're going to have an argument with your product owner because they want everything? But now you have a way of saying, hey, what about this? Does this get us there? And it's very similar to what you might have spent a couple hours doing, but now it's available to you at your fingertips. Do the improvements after using AI tools, faster, more comprehensive requirements analysis, improve accuracy by catching overlooked overlooked needs or contradictions, data-driven prioritization and validation requirements, and that's so nice because there's so much data available to you through Jira and through ADO, and having something be able to just do it for you, and it not be one of the canned things that are in those applications is great. Enhanced collaboration and alignment among stakeholders. And this is my last topic. If you have enterprise integration, like we have Copilot from Microsoft that integrates into our SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams channels. There's two versions of it. There's like the improving one, and then there's the web. The web one's like ChatGPT. It just searches
The whole
ChatGPT.
thing, right?
But the web one, I mean the internal one,
The enterprise, yeah.
it goes through it and it goes through all the shared files,
Right.
and it's like, how do you define a developer? It's going to go through and look through all the improving ones and say, this is how improving defines a developer versus just a random developer definition. And the weird things happened to me like 3 weeks ago before I took the course. I was writing about Mango Chango, which is the company in Guatemala we bought. And I was using Copilot that day instead of ChatGPT, and I asked it, give me a summary that I can share with people in 3 sentences. And it announced already, in the summary, it's like improving his bot Mango Chango. And I was like, how do you know that? I go, because that hadn't been released yet. And Curtis, our CEO, had sent an email out to everybody at improving. And so it knew to look there. But when I typed the same prompt in ChatGPT, it's like, oh, Mango Chango is this leading, Guatemalan company that does, IT work, and it's very different.
Right.
But now you have the access to a whole bunch of information. So it's not just, it doesn't search everything, but it searches the area that it's allowed to go into. Right. So it's an amazing source for things like, if you're in HR and you're doing job requirements, there's going through 100 resumes manually, there's checking ChatGPT, and there's like, oh, this is what our other offices who hired for this position have in their job requirements. Let me pull that and the web and make it a great source for me. So that's my 5 things. I don't know when I forgot when I started, but thank you.
I have a question. Since you passed the previous slide, I'm going to be obnoxious about it. What AI tools would you suggest to use? You mentioned one that I didn't know about, podcast.
Notebook
Notebook.
It's
I wasn't aware of that.
It's a
one, too.
Google product, I believe.
So I'm not an expert in Notebook LM, but like, it's an interface, right? And you could drop a video, you can drop a book, you can drop a PDF into it, and then it just starts going. And then you can ask questions to it, like, hey, I need a summary for this, or why did you come up with that? And on the side, the 2 outputs are a podcast and a video. And it just starts making them. And then you can even start listening to the podcast as it's still working on it. And like I was telling my wife, she's like, oh, I would love to have something like start making a PowerPoint deck for me. And you can ask it to make these outputs. But like that's the one I just learned. We use Copilot. We use Copilot at work because they ask us if you put because the way our Copilot works, if you put anything into it, it stays in improving versus feeding the model. But a popular one is ChatGPT, and so most people are familiar with that. Just be careful if you're putting in your company's data or client data, and also know that some companies are not cool with you putting in data, but they're okay with you using it to make code. Some companies are not cool with anything with AI, and so
We can't touch it.
yes, you had to ask them like, is it cool for me? They might be cool with you making requirements with it, but they may not be cool with you making code with it.
I don't think they know that we have AI and Jira right now.
Yeah, Rovo.
So Rovo is like
Yeah, it's good.
accepted right now, but I think it's just because it's not touching the web.
Yeah, and
Like you said, for Copilot, but that's something that they are vetting just to make sure that it doesn't push out social security numbers.
and it comes from knowledge, like Grammarly is AI. When people think, oh, Grammarly's that new little bug that works on the corner of my thing and makes the red lines go away. It's learning your tone and it's helping input all these types of things. And so I would say just because it works at your office, go out, ask, get permission. It might suck that the item is taken away, but you'd rather do that than open yourself up to risk of liabilities from
Absolutely.
exposing some of the important data.
What's the Jira product you're talking about?
So Robo Chat, it's their new AI piece that they just pushed out.
Is
It's
it-
already integrated.
Is it the same thing like when you're writing a task
That's like a
You can
description
hit
creation,
you can hit
like
like
improved
Yeah,
description.
it's a little better than that. I think.
It's
It's kind of like that, but it's better.
You can use it for like, hey, use it like any other AI.
Yeah,
Hey,
talk to it, yeah.
I need you to look through
Yep.
through Jira, look at this specific board, and I'm looking for every single story that has this in it. It'll pull up all stories, anything that has context in it. You can say, hey, we need a little bit more where this is, something more specific on this. Use it as like any other AI prompt. Go and gather these stories and create. Like I haven't done anything where it will go and like create stories for you itself, but I'm assuming it can split off and make copies and create new stories and kind of all the manual stuff that you do. So
You guys may not believe me, but like I use AI to, it was my first attempt at the slideshow, and it was 12 slides, and like what I ended up using was like a couple of the pictures from it, and then I ended up just building up the slide deck. But one of the best things people talk about with AI is it gets you started. Gets you started right in the right direction.
It's a good framework.
And like having the title slide, the conclusion slide, and then like 9, I mean like a lot of the slides had 2 slides, couldn't go topic, but then just kind of randomly ended up with 1. That's what AI does. But it was enough to get me to sit down and be like, dude, this is what the slide deck looks like here. Just start making it. And so, but then I stuff stuff in all the time to check, like ask it, change this to title case, right? And so like, there's some tools like that, but I was just throwing it in Copilot, taking it and bringing it back. And at the end, I put it in and I was like, what suggestions do you have for grammar and spelling? And I went through and I found some place that had commas where it didn't need to be, and it was like, maybe it'd be better if you didn't have a comma in the title. And I was like, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Copilot. You could have it make the changes. I wanted it to have a list so I could make the changes myself. But could you have it do it all for you? Yeah. But I hope you would review it at the end to make sure if you're turning it in or presenting in front of a user group that it's your work.
Notebook LM is really good because it shows how you learn, which is why some people learn better auditorily through podcasts or sessions like this rather than just reading it. So it's huge.
If you feed Notebook LM like a 100-page PDF with no pictures, it's going to have pictures in the video. It's going to either make them or find them for you. It's amazing. It's really cool too.
Notebook LM. So it's open source. I believe you just like you said, it's more like a study tool. I guess it can go and create stuff for you. Like if you wanted to do like a session like this and have like slides and other pieces like that. But it's mostly like a lot of people will go through and do it for. I only learned about it because my brother, who's in college, was telling me about it, and he was like, "Yeah, I use this all the time to study."
So I didn't do that for this last certification exam I did, but that was one of the takeaways. Like the instructor was like, "Take the PDF, take these 5 exercises, put it in it, and then it's going to output a video." And he's like, "Watch the video; it's going to help you prepare." But I was here, I was trying to get it done, and I was like, "I need to have today to do the end of the presentation." So I was like, let's get the certification over with, and I took the test yesterday. But if I only had an hour to do it, I'd be like, yeah, I would stick it in there and read it. And would I miss some questions? Probably, but would I be way better prepared than me reading the 10 pages that I would have gotten through on my own?
Well,
I think the answer is easily yes.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that companies like we use a lot of like training pieces like that too. And they're like, I'm trying to remember, it's, I've been in it so long, but they made this like 3-4 hour sessions just to go over normal Agile principles. I want to set the 4-hour session to go relearn stuff that I already know for the most part, just to grab maybe some small pieces that I'm missing, So it's definitely easier to go through and, like you said, grab that URL, throw it in, and say, hey, I know these principles. What else are you guys saying in this video that I might be missing? Or make the main points in this so that I can go take a look at this, and then bookmark places in the video that I can go and relook at.
When you drop it like a 2-hour video, does it have to like run through for 2 hours, or is it just
No, it'll.
It's not instantaneous, but it does have to.
It buffers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think it depends on the time of the day too. Because like ChatGPT will also buffer for a while if a lot of people are on it. So,
It's free for now, yeah.
mhm.
So that's my presentation. But I was going to say these types of user groups are only valuable if people come and people ask questions and people say, I'd like to learn about something, or I don't know about something, or everybody seems to know about this. How do I get information? And so like I mentioned, I was sincere when I'd love to do another course, and teach something, but I don't want to teach something that I think is beneficial only. I want to teach something that you guys would actually use. Like, I've heard about this, or a company has not adopted this, but I'd like to learn it so I can bring this back to them and show them that this works. And so that tells them I go know what you guys are interested in. And so they can ask me, I can ask other BAs. Right now, Claudio's presented for you before. Excellent resource and excellent presenter. When you said nobody does testing, development, and MBA work, I'm like, Claudio does. He does all that well.
And Claudio,
Because
I would believe Claudio
He's
would.
that unicorn that does it all well. But we have a lot of people who would be happy just to know that they can talk in front of somebody will benefit from it. And so don't feel bad. You can bring it to them, and you can bring it to us or anybody. You can bring it back here, and then we'll have some pizza and Coke and talk about things.
For sure. Well, any other questions? Yeah, no, thank you, Shervin. I believe I think we have a slide to capture the,
I think we covered that was earlier on.
okay.
Was it the first one with the?
Yeah.
Yeah, feedback. Yeah, the very first slide was feedback. Yeah, was it feedback or was it join the group?
Oh, I may have copy that over. Oh, sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, no worries. All good, because I think I have, so I think I'm connected with most of you on LinkedIn already. So I have like the URL for like the QR code. So if you guys want to respond, I can send you all.